7.
Silent mode.
Yes, indeed, it is the 7th of March 2021, and once again we are live. To my extended family worldwide, whether you're watching live or on the replay, thank you very much for joining me once again. I'm your host, Drew, also known as SilentMode, Artist and LEGO Enthusiast. Now then, I got to ask you guys a question because I haven't been feeling too well recently, and today I've got a bit of a blocked nose and it may interfere with the quality of my voice. I wanted to ask you guys whether I should continue with my original plan of creating a 3D model of a minifigure baby, or if you'd rather see me do a model build instead. I've got a few models on deck. Bear in mind that if you choose to go with the model, I'll have to spend a few minutes clearing up here because this wasn't my original plan. But let me know what you think, and while I'm waiting for your decision, I'll let you guys know what's been going on in my end of the world. Now then, as you guys know, last year I did a few weekend build videos of various sets I had in my collection, and one thing I've started to do is sell them because I'm not really into sets anymore. I only really buy sets for parts, and I figured that rather than steal some parts from complete sets that I've built, it may be better to give them to a new home, give them to somebody who will hopefully appreciate them. And so I put the very first one of them up for sale. It was the International Space Station, put out for sale on eBay a couple of weeks ago, and it has a buyer. It had a buyer, and they've hopefully now received it. The good thing about it was that it's raised a little bit of money for charity, because I decided at the 11th hour that some of the proceeds would go to one of my designated charities, and so I felt really good about that. So I felt good that I was able to do something good, and it's a win-win-win situation, which is the kind that I really like. So I'm going to be doing that with some of the other weekend build sets. I think the next one is going to be the Architecture Paris set. I did receive that one as a gift, but I think that somebody else would appreciate it a little bit more, and besides, I don't really have any space to display these models anymore. And so the other thing I wanted to point out was my current progress on the 365 room challenge, which is still going, which I'm very proud of at the moment. So if you remember last time, back in February, I ran into the issue of not really knowing what to do with the space that I'd allocated. So I decided to make use of one of the rules I'd set previously, which was to be able to expand the space. And so I've now doubled the size of the space I'm working with, and I guess now it's become more of a living quarters challenge than a room challenge. I'll show you some pictures right now. So this is what the area looks like with the space essentially doubled. So I've extended the backyard, I've extended the main room. Oh, you can't see my cursor. I've extended quite a few things, and I've added another sub room, if you like, which is the sauna. So you guys would have seen all the progress that I've been making if you'd follow me on Instagram, and if you're interested in doing so, my username is at the bottom left of your screen right now. But yes, as you can see, this is day 58, and this is a nice overview of what the so-called room looks like right now. And just posted maybe a couple of hours ago was my most recent update, which was adding this particular thing here on the left, and it replaces a very similar object that I'd added previously. So if you want to find out what exactly that bit of furniture is, I've actually got a couple of videos coming up which outlines what it is exactly. It's a very easy model to build. You could probably find the parts to make it yourself, and possibly make it an even better one than I have right now. So I have to admit, it's all quiet in the chat at the moment. That's perfectly alright, and I guess I am going to be going ahead with my original plan, which is to create a 3D model of a baby. Shout out to Kerry J in the chat. Thank you very much for joining me, and I really appreciate it as usual. But yes, without further ado, we're going to get into the main subject of this video, which is creating the baby. Now, I have to warn you guys, and I've mentioned it in the description, this is my first time doing it, and I am not sure how well it's going to go. Let me just see if I can find the right screen here. So I've made a start. I've opened up Fusion 360 and I've set up the workspace to have 3 canvases. So the first canvas is the minifigure baby from the front, and then we have one from the left hand side or the right, whichever you prefer, and then one from the top view. Now these pictures were taken from LDraw, which is an old school program for creating Lego models. It's still around, people still use it, and I use it very occasionally, but it's quite technical. So the model for the baby was taken from LDraw, and you may have seen some people design or rather 3D print models based on Lego objects. And what I highly suspect they do is they take the models from LDraw, they convert it into a format that you can 3D print from, and they just do it like that. Now I could do the same thing with the minifigure baby, because my ultimate goal for this is to essentially customize them so I can create my own versions of the baby. The only challenge is that, from my experience anyway, the models don't lend themselves very well to 3D printing, so you have to do a bit of conversion, and then you have to worry about parts fitting as well. So the goal of this is to create a version that I can 3D print, that I can chop and change as much as I want to, and essentially have something I can customize. So anyway, let's get started. And I have to warn you guys again, as well as being an amateur, this is going to take as long as it's going to take. So feel free to jump out if you have something else to do, if there's something more pressing. I completely understand, but there's no telling how long this is going to take, because again, this is my first time doing this. So I will mention that my strategy is to divide this in half and then mirror what I've created. So I'm going to do one half of the baby, and then when I'm happy with it, I'll duplicate or mirror what I've created and go from there. So what approach am I going to take with this? Well, my immediate thought was to start from the top and then just draw a square or a rectangle here. The only problem with doing that is that if we look on the right or the left, we see that the body has an irregular shape. So we could just create a cube starting from here and then going up, but then we'd have to deal with the shape of the body and all its angles, etc. So what I'm going to do instead, if I just go out here and go back a step, is I'm going to create a sketch starting from the side here. So this isn't a tutorial on Fusion 360, by the way, because I still don't know how to use it effectively. So what I'm going to do is just create an outline of the body, and I'll go through this and clean it up later. I'm going to use the line tool to just trace a very basic shape. There's a little bit of snapping here, which I don't want, so I'll just zoom in a little bit. Okay, sorry about that. I've just seen that it's disconnected for some reason, but hopefully we're back. So what I'm doing is just tracing the outline of the legs for the baby. So we have a shape here. Now first of all, what I want to make sure is that this bottom bit is horizontal, so I can just select this line here and do a horizontal vertical constraint. So this symbol here means that the line is horizontal, as well as this one being vertical. We want to do the same for this line as well. So the sketch geometry is over constraint. Let's see if we can resolve that. Okay, I think what we'll have to do is get rid of some of these constraints if we can. Yes, and by the way, again, if you have joined me for a sleepy Sunday, let me know how you're doing in the chat. Oh dear. Alright, so let's try this again. Right, so this line is made vertical, and this symbol here I think means that it is a, what's that? It's perpendicular, so it's a 90-degree angle. Right, so I created this basic outline, and what I'm going to do is take care of this round bit here. So what I'll do is, I could create the circle, instead I'll go for an ellipse. So let's see, that might work. Okay. So I've got that particular curve covered. Sorry. But then I don't want this part up here. I just want I just want to use this particular bit. So what I'll do is just draw a line there, and then I will trim these lines. Okay, so we have, get rid of this little bit here and this line here, so we have the basic leg shape. Right, so we've created that sketch, and then what we want to do is extrude it so we have one half of the body, or the legs. So we'll go to the extrude tool. Now we can either go left or right. I think just to make things easy, I'll go right. And we will extend the shape more or less to this edge here. So we'll just have to guess. We'll have to guess how much it is. I'm just going to use rough numbers for now, and then I'll go ahead and clean it up later. Right, so if I hide these canvases temporarily, you can see that we have some legs, and that's pretty cool. Okay, the next challenge is going to be the torso, or the body, if you like. So if you look on the left side, we can see that it looks like a straightforward shape here. We could just go ahead and draw the outline of this similar to how we did the legs. The only issue is that if we look at the front, we see that the torso also tapers. So it starts quite wide and gets narrower, or narrows as we go up here. So there's a couple of ways we can do this, and yes, it is Bob, but thank you for joining me. As I was saying, one way I would tackle this particular issue is by drawing two different sketches and then creating what we call a a loft. So you can see here, that's more or less what I want to try and do. How's it going, Bob, by the way? Thank you for joining me. Okay, so let me think how to tackle this now. If we hide the canvases for just a second, I will create what's called an offset plane, starting from the top of the legs. And this essentially tells me where to start drawing from in terms of creating a sketch. So I'll create another one from this plane that I've just created. And then show the canvases again. So what I want to do in this case is draw the body, or the base of the body, or the torso. So what, let's see. Okay, so what I want to do is start the rectangle from where the legs stop, and we can do that, so just remembers, by taking this selection and creating a projection. So I press P on the keyboard. Just make sure these are selected. So that makes a copy of all the points from that sketch, or that particular object, and then I can do this. Again, very rough measurements, because it's just about creating the overall shape, and I can go ahead and clean it up later. Let me not do that. I think you'll find that 160 gigabytes isn't nearly enough these days. I have a 2 terabyte drive that I use for backing up, and I think that will do me for the next 2 or 3 years, being optimistic. Gosh, I remember the days when I could use CDs and DVDs to back everything up, but that would take goodness knows how long now, and even now there's no guarantee of backing everything up. Okay, so I'm just, so as I mentioned, I'm just I've not done this before, so I am playing it by ear. So I'll just disable these for the time being. Alright, so we've essentially created the bottom of the figure, or the body. Now, why did I do that? Okay, I definitely didn't want to do that. So we didn't need this rectangle that we just drew. We just wanted that area there. So now what I want to do is create a similar rectangle, but for this part of the body. Now what I'll do is create another offset plane from this point, and then we can raise it relative to that part to where we want the top of the body to sit. And let's see, I'll just have to guess for the time being. Now, how do you know man cave isn't my thing? You should probably see where I live right now. It's well, it's less of a man cave than a tip, I have to admit. Okay, so we're going to create the top. We're going to create the top of the body, this bit here, and for this I think I'll need the top view, so you can just about see the corners here where we want the body to end. And again, I'm just going to do this very roughly, because I will go back and create some more solid measurements. Okay, so we have this bit, which corresponds, hopefully, no it doesn't, to the top of the body, and we have this bit which corresponds to the bottom. So I'll just go in and redo this sketch. I've been lied to. I think I see what's happened. I've got slightly different projection, I think. Alright, so let me see if I can adjust that. Let me see if I can adjust it somehow. Dearie me. There's always something that goes wrong with these live streams, but never mind. You back up to a tape drive. My goodness, they still have those things. Is it still cost effective to, or is it cost effective to back up to a tape drive? Because I can't imagine you can back very much up to a tape these days. Okay, this is very, very odd. This is extremely odd. Okay. Okay. Gosh, you gave me... Hang on just a second. Gosh, just the mentioning of the A and B drives, that takes me back to the days of floppy disks. Strangely enough, I remember them quite fondly, even though I've gone through goodness knows how many floppy disks. I kind of wish that they were still a thing, but yeah, in terms of backing things up, yeah, I can imagine. I can imagine that for a tape drive, the backup would be very slow, because even at the most basic level, you'd have to rewind the tape. You'd have to position the tape at the relevant spots, etc. Okay, so this took a lot longer than I'd like, but I've got the top bit here and the bottom bit here. So what I'm going to do is try and create a loft to create the body. Let me just check the fronts. Yeah. Right, so I'll select the loft tool, and we'll start with this, and we will end with this. There we go. So you can see we've more or less recreated the shape of the torso. Okay, and so we have the body, and it is attached to the legs. Cool. Alright, so what's next? I guess we could tackle the part that I am fearing the most, which is both the arms and the hands. Yeah, we may as well do that. Okay, so let's show the front view. So what we want to do first of all is recreate this hand here. So as you can see, it looks pretty much like a cylinder, and then if you look on the side, you can see that it keeps the shape of the cylinder, and there's this curved bit here. And with the baby, unlike the other minifigures, you got the filled parts. The hole inside the hand is filled. So let's see how we're gonna create this. We can start by creating a. We could create a cylinder. Oops. Let me take a step back. Let me hide one of these canvases. What I'll do is create, just to make things a little simpler, create a construction plane and have it begin where we want the hands to start, roughly where we want it to start. Okay, let's say there. And then let's create a let's create a cylinder. Oops. Yeah, there is an awful lot, especially if you are completely unfamiliar with 3D modeling. Fun fact, I actually did an animation degree at university. So you'd think I would know about this stuff, except that I specialized in two-dimensional animation. This 3D stuff I never got to pick up, unfortunately. Dear. Yeah, I never picked up 3D animation or anything like that, and I wish I had, but at the time there were just no tutorials. There was no real way of getting into it unless you knew it already. I haven't seen anything about train tracks, unfortunately, and that's one thing. I've been so far out of the loop with what's going on with LEGO that I don't know what's going on these days. I have absolutely no idea. And similar to this, I don't know what I'm doing right now, unfortunately, but nevertheless I must persevere. Right, so I'm going to do it another way, which is creating a circle manually to represent the minifigure hands. And I think what I'll do is, I've got one circle here, and then I'll create an inner circle for the inside. And I guess while I'm here I can create a line which will cut the outer circle to make a basic hand shape. That went wrong. But yes, certainly over the last couple of years or so, I haven't been paying any or hardly any attention to what's been going on in the world of LEGO, because I've just been more or less disconnected from the whole thing. But I know a few of the things that have gone on, such as there's a new video theme. I think it seems similar to Dots, except it's supposedly aimed at both girls and boys. That's about it, really. Sony Vegas 14. That's video editing software, if I remember correctly. I've always used Premiere. I've never really gotten to grips with anything else. There was something very similar to Premiere that I used in college, but I've never seen it outside of the college, and it's always been Premiere for me. Okay, I guess it's because I'm trying to do this on a live stream that I just can't seem to get this. Way to embarrass myself. How would I do this if I wasn't on a live stream? Let me think. Okay, let's start with removing the sketch and removing this construction plane. And let's take a step back and let's get rid of a few of these canvases. Alright, so we have the body. We have the body and we have the legs. We still have to build the hands, we still have to build the arms, which is even more difficult than the hands, by the way. We have to build the head, which is going to be fairly, well, certainly compared to the hands and the arms, comparatively easy. And then something to join the head and the body together. So I do want to tackle the hands because that will make doing the arms hopefully that little bit easier. So let's try hiding the body first of all. Let's remove as much clutter as possible, and let's go to the top view. Now let's try this again. Oh, well, what are these? Okay, let's hide that sketch. Alright, let's do this then. Let's do this. Let's create a sketch on this plane. And let's pretend there's nothing else here. We are just interested in creating a hand. And I would say that this is one of the areas where relying on, in this case, LDraw geometry can easily trip one up. I have to remind myself, as with just about any other project I've taken on, I'm not trying to recreate something exactly like Lego. That's a really important thing that I would recommend other people remember. It's not about trying to recreate something exactly like Lego, unless that's what you're actually trying to do, in which case good luck. This is about creating my own version of something. And if I remember that, it makes things a little bit easier. Okay, so we've gotten this far, that's cool. What I want to do is create a rectangle that's aligned perfectly in the middle of this points here and this midpoint here. So what I'll do is create what we call a construction line, starting from this point and bisecting that line here. So what I should then be able to do is create a regular rectangle, remembering to deselect construction, start from here and then just cover that hole there. Cool. And then I will just trim these lines because we don't need them now. Alright, so that's a basic hand shape. So hopefully we should be able to make what looks like a hand from that. Let's zoom back out. And let's have a look at the front view. Alright, so as you can see, that's where our sketch is, and we want to create our hand. So we could start by selecting both of these shapes, the inner and outer circle, and extruding them in one direction to get rough hand shape. I'm going to reduce it to, let's say, lucky 13. That looks about right. Okay, so if I hide the canvases, that's what the hand looks like at the moment. I think next what we want to do is create an indent at the top of the hand to make it look a little bit more like what the baby's hand looks like. So we select this inner circle, and instead of extruding, which should look like this, we would cut into the shape, but not nearly by that much. I'd say maybe two. These are millimeters, by the way, but again I will modify the geometry later. So if we hide the sketch, you can see that we've cut into the shape, which now looks a little bit more like the minifigure baby hands. I'll just there we go. Okay, so one more thing to do is that, if you remember, the hand is slightly rounded here. So hopefully we can replicate that by using the fillet tool. So what we could do is select these edges here and just play around with the values until we have something we're pleased with. Let's have a look on the left. That looks pretty good. What does the sketch look like? It's fairly similar, I think. Can my mic pick up a cop car in the background? Well, you know what? I have such a quiet voice, and so I'm told that somebody could be screaming on the other side of the road from outside, and you could probably hear them a lot better than you could hear me. But this is a rather powerful mic. It's a fairly decent mic. So it wouldn't surprise me at all if you could hear other sounds. As far as picking up broadcasts, which I guess is what you're asking, I don't think so. I think that's my microphone is just a microphone. I don't think it can actually pick up radio waves or anything like that. Okay, so where are we? We have what looks like a minifigure hand now. If I just hide these canvases and I show the body, this is what it looks like, but whoops. We also want to adjust the position of this hand so it's more in line with where we want it to be. Right, so if I hide the, let's see, the top and the front, move to the right hand side and I select the move tool, we can select the hand and we can shift it more or less to where we want it. That's pretty good actually. Alright, so where are we? We have the body, we have the legs, and we have the hand, and now this is the bit that I've been dreading, the arms, because this is where I tend to fall down with the with 3D modeling. How to make the arms that look like arms. Oops. Why does that happen? Okay, so I did have a play around with Fusion 360 before this started. I've been thinking all weekend about how I'm going to do this, and I guess one solution is to use this tool, which is creating a form. And this is entirely experimental. This could go horribly wrong. As a matter of fact, I'm expecting this to go wrong. But what we could do is create some forms to represent the arm, to give it a slightly organic shape. So let's give this a shot. Right, so what I'm going to do is create a cylinder, or perhaps even a series of cylinders representing the arms. So I started with the midpoint of the cylinder, starting from the side, defining the diameter, and now I guess I'll define the length, if I can have this rotate the right way. Okay, so we want the length of the cylinder. Let's go to the top view and look at the top. Yeah, I have to bear in mind that the top seems to be misaligned with the rest of the body. I'll reduce the number of segments or height faces. Okay, so are we saying that my microphone can pick up a police car in the background? Well, if it's got its sirens on, then certainly it can certainly pick up noises from outside. I guess I was thinking in terms of anything that happens on the police radio. I don't know about that, and I'm not sure if I'd want that to happen, to be honest. Anyway, we're still in experimental mode here, so I am thinking about how to create this arm. Okay, so we started with this cylinder, and I've gone down this route because we can then manipulate the shape by, let's say, selecting the edges, going a bit closer, selecting the edges and going to modify. It looks a bit of a mess at the moment, but we can scale this edge. This is vertical. This is horizontal scaling. Okay, we can rotate. We can do a little bit of manipulation. So I'm thinking perhaps use a combination of these to build our arms. Now, which combination, I have absolutely no idea, but we will persevere and we will get it eventually. Alright, so I'm just going to play it by ear because the LDraw screenshots are a little bit misleading, unfortunately. So what I'm going to do is have this bit of the arm extending from the body, and then what we probably want to do is turn it this way. We'll begin turning it this way somehow in order to create the bend. But instead what I'm going to do is say push that back, and let's see what else we can do with this. Okay, let's start again with this. let's try doing this again. So I'll get rid of that and I'll create a form. So what I'll do is try a cylinder from, I'll try one starting from the side and then one extending from the hand, and then perhaps look to join both of those at some points. Well, while we're on the subject of picking up sounds, and you know, I appreciate you guys are still here. I can only imagine how boring this is. How good would you say your hearing is? Just out of curiosity, because I would say that my hearing's not very good, although it's more a case that it's more the case that I have difficulty concentrating on certain sounds rather than having bad hearing. I'm not sure if you guys know what I mean. So I've usually had issues when I'm out and about. If I'm in a let's say a busy club or a bar or whatever. Not that I usually go to those things. I have a hard time concentrating on certain sounds, I suppose. Keeping track of conversations and things. So in that sense, I would say that my hearing is not very good. Okay, well, Kerry J, I envy you. That's all I can really say. I envy you for having very good hearing. Okay, so dare I say it, I think I'm getting somewhere with this arm. I don't know how this is. I don't know how this is going to turn out, to be absolutely honest, but this is looking rather interesting. So I'm literally just playing around with the shapes at the moment, trying to resemble something looking like a bent arm. But the good news is that once and if I'm able to get this shape, then it's more or less plain sailing from here. Gosh, he only it makes me wonder how, you know, how quickly people at LEGO are able to make these shapes. Because I'm having a heck of a time trying to do it myself. I suppose, mental note for myself, before announcing a live stream that I'm going to be doing this, I'd better get some practice in. Now that's an interesting thought, and it's probably beyond the scope of this live stream, but it's interesting that you say that you're raised to value silence, because from my experience, and I'm pretty sure some of you can attest, it's actually the opposite, that loudness is valued. You'll actually be criticized and, for lack of a better term, crucified for being quiet, and that's whether you're a male or female. I've actually I had a very interesting conversation with somebody a while ago, saying that it was frowned upon for a female in particular to be loud. I think that society generally values women who are, well, actually, I don't think it makes that much of a difference whether a woman or a girl is loud or quiet. But certainly the idea of being loud is seen as masculine, and so men are expected to be loud for whatever reason. I've certainly had issues with being soft-spoken myself, as some of you know. It's certainly been a challenge, but it's also something that, on a personal level, I have learned to embrace. You know, rather than trying to fight it, try to find ways of working with it. That's been my general thought. But yes, I should definitely practice this before I get on a live stream and bore you guys to tears with this. Okay, so I'm gonna see if I can, let's see, try creating another cylinder somewhere else. Okay, I'm not sure what. Oh. Okay, never mind. I'm just thinking, is there a way of extending this part of this cylinder to make it meet the hand? Okay, extrude, that helps, I think. Nope. Yeah, I'm just trying to think of what I can do. So I thought maybe I could extend this part of the arm, but it doesn't appear as if I can. So I'll just have to improvise. What would silent mode do? Okay, so what silent mode would do is you would just say to heck with perfection. Just try and get the results that you want. Alright, so I'm going to use some more. I'm going to use more of this. I'm going to use more of this to create the bends that I'm looking for. We can do this. Okay, well, it's better than nothing, I would say. You want to move this bit down. This is let's see, 53. You're 53, Bob. I did not know that. Well, I gotta say, I'm getting on myself. I gave up referring to myself as young when I heck, I may as well mention I'm 38 now. I'll be 39 this year. I gave up calling myself young when I reached 35. You know, I often hear from people, it's all downhill from here. And I certainly found I'm not as youthful as I used to be in any sense of the term, but I also think that it's as much to do with what I'm doing. Yeah, 53. I suppose this is why this is why I'm emphasizing this year, at least, doing more. You know, I want to. You know, I've spent so long, I guess, procrastinating, not doing as much as I could in terms of projects and things. And this year is essentially about coming out of hiding and doing a lot more in terms of actually producing things. Just thinking about the last live stream I did with, you know, where I mentioned the Lego fan who's no longer with us. I guess none of us really knows how much time we have left, so it's important, to me at least, to do what we can to make our own contributions. And for too long I have been in hiding because of various things, and this year I wanted to put a stop to that, hence why I refer to this year as the year of the mode. It's my comeback here. So yeah, I'm literally just playing around with this. I have no idea what I'm doing or how this is going to look. Just trying to create a semblance of an arm. Again, I have no idea how the people at LEGO do these things. I've got no idea how anybody actually gets into 3D modeling, or how they did when, you know, when I was starting out in animation. I literally couldn't find any tutorials on it that made sense back then. Alright, so for the sake of time, I'm going to go with this for the arm. Let's see how this looks. If I hide the canvases, that doesn't look too bad actually. I don't think that looks too bad. What do you guys think? Okay, there's a little bit there where I suppose we could just shift the hands. Oh no, we could go in and correct that shape. I'll do that. we could do is move this forward. Thank you, Kerry. You don't have to say that, by the way, but I appreciate that. But yes, again, talking about me again, I do have a number of similar projects like this on the go, and I can't wait to show you guys what exactly I've been creating. It's just that I have to be rather secretive, or I feel I should be secretive right now just because of everything that's been going on. You have an e-bike. Let me tell you something. I don't know if you guys remember the hoverboard craze. This was a few years ago, back when hoverboards were relatively new, and I think they cost about £600. I was almost tempted to get one of those because I was too lazy to walk, and they seemed rather cool at the time, and I could imagine myself just scooting down the road or the pavement with one of those things. But there were a couple of things that prevented me from making that move. First thing was that well, first of all, they were expensive. Second of all, they were actually illegal to use in a public. You could only really use them on private land, which kind of defeated the purpose. The third thing was that you had to be a maximum weight to be able to use them, and I was, let's just say, above that weight. And I guess the fourth thing were the notorious stories about them catching fire, and I certainly didn't want that. If I knew how to ride one of those things, I would probably go for an e-scooter. I think those are quite cool. An e-bike. Those would be cool as well if I knew how to ride a bike. Sadly, that's one of many things I ever picked up when I was young. Although quite recently somebody did attempt to give me a basic lesson in learning how to ride a bike, which is very generous of them. But I think with everything that's going on right now, it would be a very good time to learn how to ride a bike. That should probably be one of my goals for this year. Okay, sorry, my nose is blocked again. Okay, so we have kind of what looks like an arm, I suppose. I've just noticed something with the hand here which I want to go back and correct, if I may. Just if you look closely here, there's a little lip. Although we can actually correct that using the chamfer tool to make it look a little more attractive. Again, this is something I can adjust at later points. And while I'm here, I may as well do these as well. Oops. Okay, not so much. Yeah, I suppose that's one of the, well, with any vehicle, I guess, that's one of the downfalls of having one or owning one, is that there's so much maintenance. I don't drive, I don't have a car or a bike or anything like that. But I suppose the closest thing I could probably relate to you guys with is a 3D printer. There is so much maintenance that has to go into those things, it's unbelievable. So you know, one would think you're getting a pretty good deal with the prices of today's 3D printers, but if you don't like tinkering around with them, then it's probably better to invest in a more expensive model. I'll just say that much. Okay, so what do we have? We have the legs, we have the torso. Both the legs and the torso are joined together. We have the arm and we have the hand. So I've created just one half of the baby, so what we're going to do is create the other half by mirroring even these bodies. So I'll select the mirror tool from here, select bodies, I'll select all three of these, and then we want to select the mirror plane, which is going to be the I think it's the y-axis. And just like that, we've created a symmetrical body. What's this warning here? Compute failed. Could not join mods. Okay, that's fine. So at the moment it kind of looks like a fat baby, to be honest. Okay, so this is usually how if you're familiar with 3D games, certainly the older kind of games, this is usually how they create the texture maps for 3D models. They basically design one half and then they flip the design to create both halves, and essentially they're symmetrical. But there's a tiny detail that's missing from this figure, and that's the indent between the legs. So there's an indent at the front and then there's one at the back as well. So before we continue, let's take care of that. If we go back one step and let's go back one step. So before we create the other half of the body, what we can do is create a sketch at the very bottom where these feet are, and we can essentially create some shapes representing the indents. So that'll be the one for the front. Again, these are very rough. I can always go back and correct them. And then we want one for the back as well, which is not going to be as large. But it will serve a purpose. Oops. Okay, so with those shapes, I'd imagine so, Bob. I'd imagine so. But I'm just thinking about how they design these parts. There's a lot of curves and intricate shapes usually. Even the most simple parts, I'd imagine, are very complex to design. Right, this indent here, I want to go a little bit further in. I'm just looking at one I made earlier. Yes, let's go back and edit this sketch. So what I want to do is project this line here onto the sketch so we know where the feet end. And we can use that as a reference for how much of an indent we want for the legs. For the front part of the legs at least. Actually, we could use this line as a reference as well. Okay, so that's pretty much spot on. Okay, so from there what we do is... did you guys hear that? That was a police car. Oh no, I think... Oh, actually I can't say if that was a police car or an ambulance. In any case, what we do is we take this first indent and we can cut into this shape, and I'll make it go to... Oh no, that's not right. We can make it go all the way up to here. And that's a very crude indent. But if we take a step forward and go back to the mirror, we can see there that the shape's been indented. Whoops. So let's go back and do the same for the back parts of the leg. Okay, I think that will do. Excuse me. Again, very crude, but you can see, okay, that may be a little bit too deep. So we can go back and edit the sketch to make it less steep. That's the beauty of Fusion 360. We can go back and change things if they're not to our liking. Right, so there we can see we have an indent to represent the legs, and from the back and the front. That was me, yes, that was me. The fun fact is that there are no police cars, there are no ambulances, fire engines, etc. until, at least in my area anyway, until I do a live stream, and then they all come out at once. That's an undisputed fact. Alright, so now we're going to create, before we create the head, we're going to create the neck connection. So we're going to draw on top of the body. We have the middle points here already. This is the middle point of the entire document, so that's a nice reference. And then we can make the neck joint as big or as small as we want. Of course, it has to be smaller than the head, but it's a simple circle from here, and then we can extrude it to create the neck, just like that. Okay, so it took us a while to get here, but this is essentially the body of the baby, and I'm going to save my progress here just in case, and I'm going to call it crude baby body. Alright, so the next part, and this is hopefully going to be a lot nicer, is creating the baby's head. So we'll put our canvases back on. We can see that the baby has this ginormous head, and it's roughly centered, so that's all good. What I'll do to make things easier is create a construction plane on top of the baby's body, and this is where we'll start the sketch, and then we can begin another sketch using that plane, and then we can draw a basic circle, and we can create it as big as we want, because some babies have some really big heads, as I'm sure some of you can attest. But we want to, for this example, just try to match it with the sketch. So let's go to the right hand side and let's see if we can make it a little bit closer to what we have. Let's say 36. Nope, that's a little bit too small. We wanted 36. That's maybe a little bit larger. 38. Okay, so that's the diameter of the baby's head. Excuse me. And to create the very basic shape of the head, we just extrude. We want to create a new body because the head is a separate component, and we want to extrude upwards. And that's pretty good for a snapped height. So we'll use that. In more than one sense of the word, I would say, Bob. In more than one sense of the word. But no comment from me in that regard. Okay, creating the stud on top of the baby's head is a very similar process. I'll just use a rough one here. And very quickly extrude upwards. Again, you can make it as tall or as short as you want. I'm going to make it, let's say, 5 millimeters. That's fine. And then to get these rounded edges on the head, we use the chamfer tool again. So this one will make, that's pretty good, 5 millimeters. And we'll create another one for the bottom. I think it's a slightly smaller value. That was pretty much the same. And that is the head, and that was comparatively painless. So here we have what is meant to be a baby, a minifigure baby. But we can't stop there. We want to make this a model so we can print as many copies as we want and customize them. So there are a few more things to do before we can do so. First of all, we've got to save it, otherwise we risk losing everything. And if we lose everything, by the way, we'll have to start this live stream all over again. And I'm going to make it to where you guys can't leave. How about that? Okay, so there are a few things we can do from this point on. First thing I'm going to do is name this particular body the head, just so I know what it is. And this body here is actually the body, so I'll name that as such. What I'm going to do is go all the way back here in the timeline, and I'm actually going to create a single component, or well, it could be a component, a single body from the arm and the hand. So first I'm going to join, I'm going to attempt anyway to join the the arm and the hand together so they're one piece. I think I'll have to do something. I'll have to do something to this form before I can join it to anything. Sorry. Okay, so just give me a second here. What are you planning to open, Bob? Is it a shop, or is it a so what are you referring to when you say you're going to open one day? Just out of curiosity. Right, so at the moment I'm trying to figure out, and I must have missed this part, how to create how I'm able to join this particular thing, which is a form, to the hand. There's got to be a way of doing it somehow. Let me think. Hold on a second. I guess it's one thing I forgot to do, and that is to that's one thing I forgot to do, and that is to close these holes up. So what I've got to do is, there was a tool, I forgot what it is. Fill hole. Very straightforward. So there's different ways of filling the hole, I guess. But what I wanted to do was preserve the shape as much as possible. Oops, no, that's not it. Deary me. So yes, what I'm trying to do at the moment is oops, that is not it. Close these holes so we could have a solid shape essentially. There we go, I think that's it. Cool. We'll do the same for this side. Now I'd like to think that would enable us to, there we go, that will enable us to join these two shapes together, which is going to be essential for the next parts. So what I'm going to do is create a component from those two, and that's going to be called an arm. So I'll hide that leftover body. So this is the arm components, and I'll call it, this is the left hand arm, so I'll call it arm L. And let's see, if we really wanted to be extra, and I'm known for being extra, what I could also do is have this arm as a separate element. So I could print the body and print the arm separately, and then just plug the arm into the body. So what I'd have to do is, first of all, subtract the body from the arm so it will slot into place, and then create a pin system so I can insert the arm into the body. So what I'll do is subtract the body from the arm. Make sure I keep the tools. So I've done that, and what we should have is a slightly modified arm. So technically, I can't even rotate this properly. So technically we should be able to piece the arm, see that cutout there? We should be able to print these separately and then be able to piece the arm in an exact position relative to the body. But in order to do that, we will have to have a pin. So let's go back to the body. We will want to create a sketch. On this plane. Let's show the body again, and let's just create a very simple pin here. Let's flip around to the left hand side just to make sure it's in the right spots. That seems okay. Maybe move it to a more secure location. There we go. Alright. I think my problem, Bob, is that there's lots I try to do, and sometimes I actually do too much. I have to admit, sometimes I do way too much. And there's reasons for that. But I won't bore you guys with them. So I'm just thinking at the moment, what I want to do is create the pin extending from the arm into the body. Oh, start from the objects. Excuse me. And then go. Okay, let me start again. Select this profile. You want to start from this object here. Excuse me. Alright, and then go this way. Okay. Again, this is a very crude way of creating a pin, but I think this will work. Parts made for a tape deck. I think that's one of the problems you'll find in general, that people want the earth, but they want to pay you crumbs. I don't think a lot of people really know or have any inkling of how much it costs to do these things, especially with outdated equipment, which is a shame, really. But it's all about finding that balance, I guess. Finding the balance between how much something is worth to you versus how much you're willing to pay for it, if that makes any sense. Okay, so created a pin for this arm, and we want to create a socket inside the body. So if we show the body, we want to create excuse me, we want to create a hole in that body. So let's hide the arm for the time being, and we want to go back to that hole we created and do an extrusion. But instead of starting from there, we want to start from this section. I'm not sure if it's going to work actually, but let's give it a try. I think that does, yeah. I think that will work. Okay. So we created a hole, and technically the arm should be able to fit into that hole just like that. One thing to bear in mind though is that, especially with 3D printing, you've got to be aware of what's called tolerances. So printing something at, let's say, 10 centimeters won't necessarily produce an object that will be 10 centimeters. It may be a little bit larger or smaller. So what we want to do is what we want to do here is essentially find out, or not necessarily find out, but make the hole a little bit larger so that we can be assured that the parts, or the arm in this case, will fit. So what I've done is created a section analysis so I can see how the arm and the body intersects. We can see here that it's going to be a very tight fit, and even the world's most accurate 3D printer isn't going to be able to create a part from this that will fit exactly. So what we'll have to do is make the hole slightly larger. So let's hide the arm, and then what I will do is, let's see what it is. I think it's offset face. Select these inside walls for the body. This one too, and I'm going to adjust it by my printer's tolerance, which is roughly 0.3 millimeters, minus 0.3 millimeters. So if you go back to our section analysis, you'll see that the hole is slightly larger. There's a gap between the arm and the body, at least inside the hole. So in theory, the arm should be able to fit, but we also want the tolerance for the place where the arm meets the body as well. So we'll do a very similar thing. Let's hide the body. So we'll do a very similar thing for the arm. Let's select this face and this face, and give them a tolerance of minus 0.3 millimeters. Which I think has worked. Let's have a look. Okay, this never happens when I'm working off of a live stream. Anyway, that's, yeah, we can see there's a gap between the arm and the body now, and in theory that should make things work. I don't know, that gap does look a little bit large though. Maybe I should reduce it to 0.2. just in case, and we can always adjust if necessary. I'll do the same here. Okay, let's get rid of this analysis, and that's what we have so far. So in theory we could print the body separately, we can print the arms separately, piece them together, which should hopefully make it easier to paint the body and the arms. And of course we'll do the same thing with the head. So if we go back to our full body, what we can do now is, because the arm is a separate component, what we can do is modify this to where it's only the body that's mirrored, because the arm we can also duplicate by creating a mirror copy. And this is the right arm, so just call it arm R. Okay, so we can go all the way back now to having created the head and the neck. So we want to make this head able to attach to the body. So what we can do is, since we have the head as a separate body, we'll just create a component. We already have the neck bracket, so we can subtract the body from the head and keep the tools. So if we hide the body, we can now see that the head has that cavity for the neck. And similarly, we want to make it a little bit larger so that when we print it, hopefully the parts will fit. So we'll give it the tolerance of 0.2 millimeters again. And hopefully that should be it. Oh yes, and before I do anything else, I'm going to save. Just call it components. Alright, and yeah, that's pretty much it for creating a minifigure baby. I guess the only things to do now is to, well, what I would do is go back and adjust a few things, have it to where I can easily modify things if I wanted to. I suppose one last thing I could do is, since I created this, I could just put my logo on it. So one last very quick step. I'll just go to my logos folder. And I will add this to the back of the baby, roughly in the center there. And then perhaps a little extrusion to cut into the body. Or perhaps I should have it like this. yeah, let's do it like that. Let's have an extrusion rather than an indents. Oops. Okay, so I want to say that is done. That is what I'm going to call my minifigure baby model. And it's taken a while to get to this step, and if you're still watching, if you're still listening, give yourself a round of applause. But man, that was an ordeal. So I guess the next thing for me to do is just to tinker with this to make it a little bit more customizable, and then I'll give it an attempt at a 3D printer. A 3D print rather. Bob is asking if I've had any trolls. Not on YouTube, thankfully, very much. I've had trolls in other areas, and I've had to deal with trolls before, but thankfully none to do with this live stream or with any of my videos in general. I have the innate ability to put people to sleep anyway, so by the time anyone thinks of trolling me, they'll have probably had a good night's kip. but yeah, I've not had any trolls, thankfully. Not on YouTube, but other areas of the internet I have. Anyhow, yes, I'm glad I've got to this point, but this is where I'm going to call it a day. Thank you very much for joining me, and thank you guys for playing along. Hopefully my next live stream is going to be a lot more exciting. I think I'll just go back to building. Just building and having a conversation, really. But we'll see what happens. Anyhow, hopefully you guys have a good rest of the day. Thanks once again for playing along. This is Drew, also known as Silent Mode, and until next time, play well.